I'll figure out a caption for this after I finish it, because there's going to be a few things I talk about. So, first of all, we had the Harnessing the Power of Women last night, which is a fantastic monthly event that Ada Briseno has been putting together long before she even became chair of the Democratic Party of Orange County. She was organizing women long before she even had that position. So for those of you who are like, I don't want to do anything with the Democratic Party, I will restate, it's actually a nonpartisan group of just empowering women. And what is the advantage of somebody my age, I'm 47, attending something like that? Ada wants us there as mentors to the younger generations, because we're trying to inspire younger ladies to get involved. But also to create a safe space for us all to share our experiences and stories, and to be empowered, to network, to move forward. We had some great speakers last night. Most impactful was, I think her name was Lauren, who's been fighting for women within the fire department. I think it was the Orange County Fire Authority, fighting to make sure that they have equity within the department, because that is another occupation where there's a bit of a glass ceiling, and they're not very concerned about specific needs of women, like, say just even having a women's restroom. So that was a really interesting presentation. This happens on a monthly basis. We used to meet in person. Sure, Ada's been putting the DPOC label on it to get it a little more traction, but it is very much a nonpartisan event of just bringing women together, so that we can talk about the issues that matter to us. So we had that last night. That was really great. And immediately afterwards, there was phone banking for no on the recall. Every week is Los Amigos. I mentioned this in the live stream I did earlier this morning. Every week on Wednesday mornings at 7:30 is Los Amigos. Okay, so we had a central committee on Monday night, and it was mentioned in the chat that there is an investigation going into what Vern Nelson and his wife were up to last week with their bizarre communications to various women. One woman received some very vulgar messages through what's called direct message over Twitter. There have been mixed accounts as to whether Vern wrote the initial messages or his wife, Donna, wrote the initial messages. Apparently some verbal apology was made for Vern doing it, but I received private messages on Facebook from Donna stating that she did it. So it's really hard to know what the hell is happening right now in regards to them, other than the two of them combined are a risk to women, an abuse risk to women, and that's really scary. And then on top of it, I don't know if you guys remember, but back in 2018 when it was Republican on Republican in the DA's race, it was the incumbent Tony Rackauckus, was battling the challenger at that time, Todd Spitzer. And we had certain Democrats who decided that they were going to lobby for Todd Spitzer. Vern was one of those Democrats. The rest of us were like, let's just stay the hell out of it because it's Republican on Republican. Vern was one. I'm not going to name the Huntington Beach person who was doing this too, because hopefully she's changed her mind about what she did. But she did have a long conversation with me at one point about how she's entitled to free speech and she can endorse anybody she wants regardless of what party. We did have that conversation. And technically you're right. Yeah, you can. Technically you're right. But not if you're a central committee member, not if you're a member to the state delegation, unless you're a pleo. Pleos get that privilege, which is unfortunate. They shouldn't have that privilege. However, they can face censure, they can't face removal, right? So the options are limited there. But what ended up happening is one of the people involved in that was Greg Diamond, and he was formerly, I think, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, he was North Vice Chair to the Democratic Party of Orange County, and he resigned his position of North Vice Chair, but retained his position as a Central Committee member, and then went full balls to the walls and endorsed Todd Spitzer for that race. The next month was my first Central Committee meeting ever. It was my first Central Committee meeting ever. And he was censured and removed. And from what I remember, he even made such a stink about it that he required that if they really wanted to remove him from the room, they would have to call the sheriff on him. I don't know that actually happened because I didn't stay all night. Those meetings go long, man. And if you don't actually have a seat at the table, there's no incentive for me to stay 4 or 5 hours for a meeting. That's what I remember happening. And then he appealed the decision to the state, and he did not win his appeal. And from what I understand, he's no longer allowed to hold a party position for 5 years from whenever that happened. So he faced some pretty severe consequences for publicly endorsing a Republican as somebody who actually held a seat as a delegate to, essentially what is a delegate to the Central Committee. There were some severe consequences. So I was on Los Amigos this morning, and history repeating itself. We have a recall that is initiated by the GOP as a power grab, and the advisement that we're getting is vote no on the recall and leave the second question blank. And there's some logic behind that. The reason that would be the position that the party takes and the position that Gavin takes is because if he advertises somebody else on the second question, then it's almost like encouraging people to vote yes on the first question. So there's some logic and strategy behind why they would choose that particular path. Now, I've thrown out that my attorney is on the ballot. He's running as a Democrat. He's a freedom of speech attorney. But I'm voting no on the recall. But I know a lot of people are nervous. A lot of people are nervous about well, what if the recall succeeds? Then what do we do? So I'm well, I'm throwing a vote to my attorney. He's running as a Democrat, and just in case, at least I can say that I voted for a Democrat. Vern, on the other hand, on Los Amigos this morning, said that he is voting for a Republican. He's voting for Kevin Faulconer. That is the same ass bullshit that you and Greg and somebody from Huntington Beach, a couple of y'all from Huntington Beach, pulled in 2018 when you should have stayed out of it and you guys were advocating for Todd Spitzer. It's the same bullshit. And now here we are, 3 years later, trying to unseat Todd Spitzer because that was a horrible fucking choice and we shouldn't have attached, well, I didn't, but y'all did. You attached your names to that motherfucker. I don't know what to say except that if somebody is trying to become the chair of the Anaheim Democrats Club, you should not be openly stating that you're going to vote for a Republican in the recall election. What the hell goes through your head, son?